The yellow grease pencil squeaks across the departure board as I write "Hold Fog" in letters large enough for the deck crew to read through the glass. Lena. Grant's voice comes from behind me. Erase that. At dawn, dense fog has swallowed Bellweather Harbor. At 5:41, the harbor desk logged a warning. At 5:44, I delayed the North Star's departure. Grant takes the pencil from my hand and slashes through my words. "You panicked over nothing," he says, loud enough for the waiting passengers to hear. Then he fires me. I leave quietly while the morning harbor log keeps recording. Through the terminal doors, I hear Grant clear the vessel anyway. The unanswered part, the one that will keep me awake for weeks, is why Captain Owen Rusk obeys him. "Lena, your radio." Grant holds out his hand. The terminal is too warm. Wet coats, burnt coffee, and diesel exhaust have turned the passenger lobby into a damp mouth. Beyond the windows, there should be a harbor. Instead, gray presses against the glass. Priya stands behind the ticket counter with a stack of boarding receipts held against her chest. Malcolm Reed has stopped halfway through the crew door, one hand still wrapped around his dented thermos. Both of them heard the harbor warning come through the ceiling speaker. So did Grant. I unclip the radio from my belt. "Operations Manager Mercer signing off," I say into it. Grant's face tightens. "You're already signed off." I'm documenting the transfer. I'm standing right here. You could be standing in Toledo. The radio doesn't care. Malcolm lowers his eyes, but I see the corner of his mouth twitch. I give my call sign, the time, and the fact that Grant Mercer is assuming terminal operations. Then I hold the radio out to him. He snatches it. "Keys." I set the brass ring on the counter. Terminal, dispatch office, fuel cabinet, maintenance gate. The old square key to slip 3 hangs slightly crooked because Grant bent it 10 winters ago trying to chip ice out of the lock. He has forgotten that story. I haven't. "The master set, too," he says. "That is the master set. Your office. Top drawer under the tide tables." He looks toward the passenger lobby. People are trying to pretend they aren't watching. A man in a blue rain shell studies the vending machine as if the crackers have started giving financial advice. Grant steps closer. "You can collect your personal things later." I have my lunch. I lift the faded canvas bag from under the desk. My shift notebook is inside it, along with an apple, 2 hard-boiled eggs, and the container of lentil soup Ruth gave me last night. Grant glances at the bag. For a second, I think he will search it. We are cousins. We spent 30 years passing food back and forth at family tables. The fact that I can imagine him opening my lunch in front of everyone tells me something has already broken. "Go home," he says. My home is above the maintenance shed 70 yards from where he's standing, but I don't give him that satisfaction. I look at Priya. Photograph the board at shift change. Grant's head turns. "It's procedure," I say. "I know the procedure." "Then you'll remember." He points toward the door. Outside, the fog beads on my eyelashes. The dock ramp is slick under my boots, and every familiar sound has been stripped loose from its source. A cleat rings somewhere to my left. Water slaps a piling below me. The North Star's generators hum in the white distance. Then Owen sounds one short blast. My hand closes around the railing. The ferry is leaving. I can't see her, but I know every step. Bow line in, stern line in, ramp light green. Owen checks the compass repeater, looks once toward the east breakwater he cannot see, and eases the throttles ahead. I taught him to wait 2 full breaths after the lines were reported clear. On crowded mornings, people heard silence and filled it with their own impatience. Owen had understood that. The engines deepen. "Don't," I whisper. The fog takes the North Star's second blast and folds it into the harbor. 3 years earlier, Owen and I had spent 6 hours bringing the old Mercer Queen home on one engine after a cooling line split west of Pilgrim Rock. Grant had been the one who found the replacement hose at midnight and drove it down from Portland with a speeding ticket tucked under the visor. Malcolm installed it while cursing every engineer who had ever designed a clamp. At sunrise, Ruth met us with sausage biscuits and called us her collection of expensive idiots. That was the problem with Grant. He wasn't a fool. Fools were easier. Grant knew how to rebuild a schedule after a mechanical delay. He could look at 8 months of fuel numbers and tell Malcolm which injector had begun running dirty. He remembered commuters' names, preferred sailings, and which local businesses bought books of transferable tickets. When county officials said Mercer Sound ferries was too small and too old-fashioned for the new commuter contract, Grant installed online ticketing, cut turnaround times, and brought our on-time rate from 82% to 96%. He also began treating every delay as a personal insult. Fog was harder for him to fight because Fog didn't sit across a desk and admit it had missed a deadline. I walked toward the maintenance shed. My boots know the route without help from my eyes. 7 steps to the bollard, slight turn at the cracked drain, then the iron stairs with the loose third tread. Behind me, the North Star's engine noise fades. At 6:07, I reach the bottom stair. At 6:09, the harbor siren begins a low visibility signal. At 6:11, the radio clipped to Malcolm's belt erupts inside the maintenance bay. North Star, tug gable point, hard to port, hard to... Metal hits something across the water. It isn't the deep, tearing roar of a hull collision. It's a flat, industrial bang, followed by the ugly vibration of machinery under strain. A woman screams over the open radio channel. Someone else shouts for passengers to stay seated. I run toward the bay door as Malcolm bursts through it. He sees me and stops. What did they hit? Work fender, maybe the dredge spread. His face has gone gray beneath his beard. Owen's backing down. Any breach? Nothing reported. Propulsion? Port side vibration. Tell him to idle port and keep starboard available. The bow thruster is still online. Malcolm grabs his radio. You told me to keep it online? At 5:37. It's supposed to be shut down between... I know what the sheet says, Malcolm. He transmits the instruction. Owen answers after a burst of static, his voice controlled but thin. The North Star still has steering. The tug gable point is holding the dredging barge off her stern. 2 passengers are down in the cabin. The deck crew is assessing. Grant comes out of the fog at a run. He nearly collides with me, catches my arms and releases them as if I'm hot. What are you doing here? Malcolm says they have port side vibration. I didn't ask you. The bow thruster is live. He looks at Malcolm. Malcolm raises his thermos slightly. She told me to leave it live. Grant takes that in. His eyes move once toward the harbor where the North Star remains invisible. Get them back to slip 2, he says. Ambulance at the service gate. Priya needs to clear the passenger lobby. Slip 2's outer piling light has been out since Tuesday, I say. I am speaking to Malcolm. He'll still hear me. Grant steps close enough that I can smell the peppermint gum he chews when he's trying not to smoke. You were terminated. And the ferry still knows where the broken light is. For 1 second, anger leaves his face. Calculation replaces it. That's the expression I will remember later, because it's the moment he understands the danger isn't only what happened outside the breakwater. It's that I know where every earlier detail lives. He turns to Malcolm. Slip 1. Have the tug walk them in. Malcolm heads back inside, relaying the plan. Grant points up the iron stairs. Stay in your apartment. I'm getting my car. You are not part of this response? Then stop asking me questions with your face. Damn it, Lena. A horn sounds from the water, close now. Grant turns instinctively. In the fog, instinct is one of the few honest things left. I climb the stairs. My apartment has 2 rooms and a bathroom, whose pipes shudder whenever the maintenance crew runs the pressure washer downstairs. I have lived there 9 years, long enough to stop noticing the ferry vibrations in the floor. This morning, I feel everyone. I set my lunch bag on the kitchen table and pull out my shift notebook. It's a cheap carbon-backed dispatch book from the marine supply store. The company buys white log sheets, but I started keeping my own duplicate notes after a fuel delivery dispute left us paying for 800 gallons we never received. Grant had praised me then, bought me a beer at the Rope Bell, and called me the human receipt. My handwriting at 5:41 is compressed but clear. Harbor Desk WX, dense fog, inner vis below safe transit, ACLM at 5:44, North Star hold, Owen advised, thruster remain live. At 5:47, GM on site, orders release refused. I add the time he took the radio and keys. My hand shakes once, hard enough to leave a dot of ink beside his initials. Downstairs, bay doors roll open. Voices call through the fog. A siren approaches on Harbor Street. I sit at the kitchen table with my coat still on and listen to strangers enter the working life I had 10 minutes ago. There's a knock at 8:20. Ruth Mercer never knocks with her knuckles. She uses whatever is in her hand. Today it sounds like a cane. "Doors open," I call. She comes in carrying a stainless steel travel mug and wearing the red wool coat she reserves for funerals and county meetings. Her silver hair is pinned up carelessly, which means someone rushed her. She looks at me, the open notebook, and my untouched lunch. "2 passengers went to the hospital," she says. "One shoulder, one cut over the eye. They're both talking and complaining about the coffee, so that seems encouraging. The North Star." Propeller guard bent. Owen says he never touched the barge. He hit a fender. That fender is the size of my first house. Your first house leaked. So does the fender, probably. She sits across from me. Ruth's humor has carried our family through deaths, divorces, engine fires, tax audits, and one disastrous attempt to sell lobster rolls on the Sunset Cruise. It lands differently today. "Grant fired me," I say. "He told me." "Did he tell you where?" Her mouth tightens. "The terminal. In front of passengers and crew." I said that was badly handled. Badly handled is putting the handicapped ramp on the wrong slip. He called me panicked. Ruth turns her travel mug between both hands. The metal makes a soft scrape against the table. "Were you?" she asks. The question is quiet. That makes it worse. I look toward the window. From here, on a clear morning, I can see the ferries from bridge to stern. Now there is only a square of white light. Harbor Desk broadcast the warning at 5:41. Grant says the formal closure came later. A warning and a closure are different things. I know that. Then why are you asking about me? Ruth's gaze drops to the notebook. She remembers the fishing boat. Everyone does, though they remember different versions. My version has rain needling sideways under the searchlight and an overturned red hull appearing between waves. It has a man's gloved hand slipping out of mine when a line snapped tight. It has me standing in the North Star's wheelhouse afterward, unable to say the word reverse, even though I could see the throttle directly in front of me. Grant's version has him driving me to appointments for 4 months and leaving groceries outside my door because I stopped answering. Ruth's has the afternoon I returned to work and vomited behind the fuel tank before my shift. I paid for that morning for years. I thought I had finally finished paying. I heard the warning, I say. Visibility was under safe transit range. I couldn't see the end light. I held the boat. Ruth nods once, but she doesn't apologize. Grant has the county review next week, she says. This accident could sink the contract. He knew that before he released the ferry. He's carrying a great deal. So was the North Star. Lena? No. You came up here to find out whether my nerves caused trouble for Grant. You have your answer. She stands slowly. For the first time, I notice a manila envelope tucked under her arm. What is that? Her fingers close around it. Grant asked me to bring you the preliminary separation papers. The floor trembles as a ferry engine starts below us. Ruth puts the envelope on my table, directly over the line in my notebook where I recorded the fog warning. Then she leaves without touching the soup she brought me. I wait until her steps fade on the iron stairs. I move the envelope aside, uncover the timestamp, and read it again. 5:41. Outside, the harbor siren sounds into the white morning, recording in its own blunt voice exactly what Grant wants everyone to forget. The envelope contains 12 pages and one yellow adhesive flag pointing to the signature line. Grant has always believed adhesive flags make bad news look organized. The first 4 pages describe my termination as the result of unauthorized service interruption, failure to follow supervisory direction, and conduct inconsistent with operational readiness. The 5th offers 8 weeks of salary, 3 months of health coverage, and forgiveness of the utility balance on my apartment. In exchange, I'm supposed to agree that I delayed the North Star because of an overcautious personal judgment made before receipt of a controlling harbor directive. I read that sentence 6 times. It's clever. The harbor warning wasn't a controlling directive. Grant isn't asking me to deny hearing it. He's asking me to help him make it irrelevant. The last page gives me 14 days to leave the apartment. I put the papers back in order, carry them downstairs, and find Grant in the maintenance office with Malcolm and 2 men from the insurance company. Grant has taken off his raincoat. His white shirt is damp at the shoulders, and there's a streak of black grease across one cuff. He sees the envelope in my hand. We're in the middle of something. So was I. One of the insurance men closes his folder. The other watches me with the expression people use when they have just discovered the meeting has a second version. I set the envelope on Grant's desk. The statement is false. It's preliminary language. It's printed on company letterhead. Lena, please. Malcolm stands beside the parts cabinet staring at the floor. His thermos is balanced on top of a box of oil filters. I want him to look at me. I also know what Grant can do to his hours. The harbor warning wasn't a closure, Grant says. I didn't call it one. You acted as though it was. I acted as though 500 tons of ferry shouldn't leave when we couldn't see the end of our own slip. The insurance man with the folder clears his throat. Ms. Mercer, were you the dispatcher of record? Operations manager. Former operations manager, Grant says. The man looks between us. At the time of departure. Yes. Grant moves around the desk. This is not the interview setting. Then don't interview her, I say. Her? The room. You just called the room a setting. Malcolm coughs into his fist. It might be a laugh. Grant turns toward him, and the sound dies. I slide the envelope closer to Grant. I won't sign this. You haven't had time to review it. I had time to reach page 5. His jaw shifts. We'll discuss it when things are less heated. I'm not heated. That's not how this looks. There it is. He says it softly, almost kindly because the insurance men are listening. I pick up the envelope again. How does it look? Grant lets the silence answer. The old shame moves fast. My fingers go cold first. Then my throat tightens, and the maintenance office seems to narrow by an inch on both sides. He knows the signs because he sat in waiting rooms with me when I couldn't drive myself. He once counted my breaths while I cried into a paper bag at a gas station outside Rockland. Now he watches to see if he can make the past happen on command. I turn to the insurance men. At 5:41, Bellweather Harbor desk broadcasts dense fog and visibility below safe transit range. At 5:44, I place the North Star on hold. At 5:52, Grant Mercer terminated me and took control of dispatch. At 6:03, he released the vessel. Grant's face changes at the precision of it. The man with the folder writes the times down. Thank you, I say, and leave before my hands begin shaking where Grant can see them. Upstairs, I lock the door, sit on the kitchen floor, and breathe until the refrigerator stops sounding like an approaching engine. By noon, the fog lifts. The harbor reappears in pieces. First the roof of the ticket booth, then the pilings, then the black water marked with a sheen of fuel near Slip 1. The North Star is tied up crooked, her passenger ramp raised. A diver's van is parked beside the maintenance bay. Someone has stretched orange tape across the service gate. From my window, I watch Grant move between the terminal and the vessel with a clipboard under his arm. He is good at looking like the person who should be asked what happens next. At 3, he sends the first internal incident report to my company email. My access has already been cut off, but the notification flashes on my phone before the account disappears. The preview reads, "Departure commenced following confirmation that conditions remained within captain's discretion." My name isn't in the visible portion. Owen's is. I walk down to the dock when the inspection team leaves. The terminal has been closed for the rest of the day, though Priya is still behind the counter, counting cash drawers. She sees me through the glass and looks toward Grant's office. I hold up my apartment key. She buzzes me in. "I'm allowed to cross the terminal to get home," I say. "I know." "You looked like you were deciding whether I needed a visa." Her mouth twitches, then flattens. "Grant told us not to discuss the incident. That's standard during a claim. He said we could lose our jobs. That part is Grant." Priya stacks a bundle of 20s, taps the edges against the counter, and starts again. "Did you take the board photo?" I ask. Her hands stop. The departure board hangs 20 feet behind her. Someone has wiped it clean. The surface is still damp around the edges, and the yellow pencil is gone from its clip. "It was chaos," she says. "That isn't an answer. I have rent. I didn't ask you to make a speech at the county building. I asked if you followed shift change procedure." She lowers her voice. "You don't work here anymore." The words come out harsher than she intended. We both hear it. Priya looks down at the money. "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Be accurate." I go upstairs. For the next 3 days, accuracy becomes expensive. A local news site posts a photograph of the North Star returning through the fog with a tug alongside. Grant's statement says the ferry encountered an uncharted work fender after an unexpected reduction in visibility. The dredging contractor responds that the fender was properly charted and lit. A passenger posts that the crew handled the emergency professionally, but that someone at Mercer Sound Ferries needs to explain why we left the dock. Grant replies by email that a complete review is underway. Ruth brings me cardboard boxes from the terminal storage room. They smell like paper cups and powdered cocoa. She sets them inside my door without asking whether I've decided to move. "You could sign and still dispute the wording later," she says. "That's an impressive sentence." It's practical. It's impossible. Most practical things are impossible until someone's mortgage depends on them. I fold the bottom flaps of a box together. "Is that what Grant told you?" "He didn't need to. The new ticketing system isn't paid off. Neither is the North Star's engine refit. We missed the county contract. We cut winter sailings." "And if I sign?" The insurer sees cooperation. The insurer sees a woman admitting she panicked. Ruth takes off her red coat and hangs it over the chair. Underneath, she's wearing the navy cardigan with the pearl buttons she used to wear behind the ticket counter. The cuffs are repaired with thread that doesn't quite match. "This company fed 3 branches of our family," she says. "It gave Malcolm 26 years of work. It paid for Priya's captain training. It kept fares low when the big operator across the sound wanted to double them." "You think I don't know what it is?" "I think you're hurt." "I am hurt." And hurt people sometimes pull harder than they mean to. I shove a stack of cookbooks into the box. It's too many for the cardboard, but I keep adding them. Grant released the boat. Owen commanded it. Grant fired the operations manager, who said no, took her radio, crossed out the hold, and told Owen to go. Owen could have refused. So could Grant. Ruth picks up the lentil soup container from the counter. The soup is still untouched. "He says you embarrassed him in front of the crew." I laugh once. "He fired me in front of the crew." "He says it happened after you challenged his authority." He was wrong. That has never stopped a Mercer man from believing he deserved privacy. For a moment, we are on the same side of the joke. Then Ruth looks at the boxes. "I can get you more time in the apartment." By asking Grant. By reminding him whose name is still on the property deed. The offer carries the weight of every favor that has ever become a family debt. "I'll be out in 14 days. Lena, I need you to go." She buttons her coat slowly. At the door, she puts the soup container into her bag. "I'll wash this," she says. It's the closest either of us gets to saying we failed. On the fifth morning, I walk into Harbor Line Survey's office with my resume in a plastic folder and find Tessa Vale standing on a chair, hitting a smoke detector with a rolled-up tide chart. "Is this a bad time?" I ask. "It's a bad detector." The alarm chirps. Tessa hits it again. "You hear about the launch coordinator job? I didn't know you had one. We didn't until yesterday." She climbs down. Tessa runs 2 survey launches, a sonar boat, and a converted lobster vessel that maps underwater cables for utilities. She wears steel-toed boots with bright purple laces and has the calm eyes of someone who routinely sends expensive equipment into dark water. "I heard Grant fired you," she says. "Bellweather is efficient when the information is humiliating. I also heard the North Star hit Dawson Dredging's fender. I didn't. That distinction matters to me." She leans against the desk. "You can organize launch windows, coordinate with harbor traffic, and keep my survey crews from inventing their own weather?" "Yes. You'll hate the pay. I'm prepared to dislike it professionally. Temporary position. 6 weeks, maybe more. We're mapping the South Channel. When do I start?" Tessa glances at the smoke detector. It chirps again. Now would be emotionally satisfying. The work is smaller than what I had. There are no passenger manifests, no vehicle decks, no morning rush. I spend my first day matching tide windows to sonar runs and teaching a geophysicist named Cal why it looked fine from the parking lot isn't a visibility measurement. It helps. The sea behaves the same whether I have a title or not. Tides arrive without reading press releases. Engines require fuel. Radios preserve what people say on them. At the end of my shift, I find Owen waiting beside my car. He looks exhausted. There's a healing cut along his cheek from something loose in the wheelhouse. He keeps his hands in his jacket pockets. "I heard you're working for Tessa." Bellweather remains efficient. He doesn't smile. I unlock my car but don't open the door. "Why did you leave?" I ask. Owen looks toward the harbor. "Grant said the warning was advisory." "You knew that before he said it." "He said visibility was improving beyond the breakwater." "Based on what?" He'd spoken to the tug. "Which tug?" His eyes flicked toward me. "That's what I thought." "Lena, I had a full cabin. We'd already boarded. People had connections." "You had command." "I know." "Then answer the question." His shoulders rise and fall. "He said if I refused a direct operational release after you'd been removed, he'd record me as unfit for the county schedule. The county contract would need 3 approved captains. Owen's promotion had put him in line to become senior master if we won it." "You believed him?" I say. "I believed he could do it." That answer is honest enough to hurt. Owen takes one hand from his pocket. "The insurer wants a statement tomorrow. Tell the truth. It's not as simple as that." It was simple at 5:44. His face closes. "You always know what everyone should have done after they didn't do it." He walks away before I can answer. When I return to the apartment that night, one of Ruth's cocoa boxes is sitting outside my door. I carry it in, expecting more packing paper. Inside is a company tablet wrapped in an old deck towel. A note on top says, "It was already synced. I never had this. There's no signature." The tablet opens to Priya's shift folder. The last image is time-stamped 5:50 that morning. On the departure board, in my yellow handwriting, "Hold Fog" stands beneath the day's schedule. A fresh diagonal mark cuts through the H. At the right edge of the photograph, Grant's hand is still holding the grease pencil. For a long time, I sit on the floor with the tablet in my lap. The photograph is better than my memory. It shows the departure board, the time, the fog pressed against the terminal windows, and Grant's hand caught in the act of crossing out the hold. His watch face is visible. So is the cuff of his white shirt, still clean before the morning turned it black. My first impulse is to send the picture to everyone. My second is to protect Priya. The second impulse wins by less than I'd like. I wrap the tablet in the deck towel and put it back in the box. Then I photograph Priya's note with my phone, place the note in my shift notebook, and call the insurance investigator whose card Malcolm slipped under my door that afternoon. Carla Imes answers on the third ring. "I have a company device containing a photograph relevant to your review," I say. "It was left outside my apartment. I don't know by whom." There's a pause. "You haven't altered the device?" I open the photo folder. "Anything else?" "No." "Can you secure it overnight?" I look at my lock, which half the maintenance crew can open. I can sleep beside it with a wrench. That's more detail than I needed, but yes. Carla meets me at Harborline's office before sunrise. Tessa lets us use the chart room, then makes a point of announcing that she's going outside to inspect a trailer tire for exactly 20 minutes. Carla wears a camel-colored coat and carries the same gray folder she had in Grant's office. She puts on gloves before touching the tablet. Who left it? I don't know. You have a suspicion. I have several employees I don't want Grant Mercer punishing because I'm good at guessing. She studies me. You understand this belongs to Mercer's sound ferries? That's why I called you instead of the newspaper. Carla powers on the tablet, opens the image, and checks its information screen. Uploaded to the shift folder at 5:50, she says. 6 minutes after the hold. 2 minutes before your termination, according to your notes. The firing started before he took my radio. Pick whichever time makes him look kinder. Her eyes lift to mine. I don't choose how people look. You're in insurance. You choose how everything looks. That earns the smallest possible smile. She photographs each page of my notebook, asks when I bought it, who supplied the carbon sheets, and whether I made any entries after leaving the terminal. I tell her which ones. She makes me separate what I heard from what Malcolm heard and what Owen later told me. Precision feels good until it reaches the parts that embarrass you. Did Mr. Mercer know about your previous medical leave? She asks. Yes. Was your leave related to decision-making under hazardous marine conditions? My leave was related to a failed rescue. Were you diagnosed with... I recovered, completed a return-to-duty evaluation, retrained, and worked without restriction for 3 years. Carla waits. Write down the diagnosis if you need it, I say. Then write down that Grant promoted me twice after it. She does. When we finish, Tessa reappears with grease on one knee and coffee in 3 paper cups. Trailer tire survived, she says. Carla seals the tablet in a padded evidence bag. Mr. Mercer will be informed that we received this. Can you leave out where? I can document that it was surrendered by you. I can't disguise that. I nod. Priya's promotion is announced before lunch. Grant names her acting terminal supervisor, gives her my old office, and adds enough money to make refusing difficult. The company post praises her steady operational judgment during the recent harbor event. Tessa reads it over my shoulder. That sentence has a blade in it, she says. It has 2. One cuts me. The other rests against Priya's throat. Grant comes to the apartment that evening while I'm packing dishes. He knocks with his knuckles, 3 measured taps. You turned over company property, he says when I open the door. Good evening to you, too. Who gave it to you? It was outside my door. Who? The fog, perhaps. Very sneaky weather. He steps inside without being invited. His eyes move across the boxes, the bare wall where my harbor chart used to hang, the pile of folded uniforms on the couch. I offered you 8 weeks, he says. You offered to buy a sentence. I offered you time to recover. From being fired? From all of this. He pulls out a kitchen chair and sits. It's such a familiar movement that my body briefly forgets we're enemies. Grant has eaten soup at this table. He has slept on the couch after late engine repairs. Once, during a December blackout, he brought up a camping stove and nearly killed us both, trying to heat clam chowder indoors. You should have told me the bow thruster was live, he says. I did, at 5:37 on the maintenance channel. I was driving. Company radios work in company trucks. I had the county office calling. There's always a reason you didn't hear the thing you needed to hear. His mouth hardens. The thruster probably prevented a more serious impact. Yes, You knew conditions were manageable. I stare at him. He spreads his hands as if the logic is lying there between us. You took precautions. Owen had maneuverability. The tug was nearby. The tug was moving a dredging barge across our route, which you didn't know. Neither did you. He gets up and walks to the window. The night is clear. Across the harbor, the red channel lights blink in an orderly line, making the whole thing look easier than it is. The county bid is Friday, he says. If they postpone, we miss the winter allocation. I'll have to cut at least 12 positions. Then give them the accurate timeline. They'll hear fired safety manager and stop listening. You created that phrase. I made a bad personnel decision during an operational dispute. You released the ferry. Owen released the ferry. There's a careful flatness in his voice. I think of Owen beside my car, hands buried in his pockets. You're going to blame him. He was captain. You told him the visibility was improving. He had instruments, he had eyes. So did you. Grant turns. Sign a corrected statement. I'll change overcautious personal judgment to conservative interpretation of advisory conditions. 12 weeks salary, 6 months health coverage. Your personnel file will show a mutual separation. And Owen? His silence answers, get out. Think past your anger. I am thinking all the way to the harbor entrance. He pauses at the door. You think records tell the truth by themselves. They don't. Someone always explains them. After he leaves, I lock the door and put a chair under the handle. My final morning in the apartment is clear and cold. Ruth arrives in her station wagon. Malcolm comes 10 minutes later with his pickup and says Grant approved 2 hours of maintenance time for him to help me move. That sounds generous, I say. He thinks I'm delivering a washer pump afterward. Are you? Malcolm points to a small cardboard box on his passenger seat. Eventually. We carry my furniture down the iron stairs. Ruth wraps my dishes in old ferry schedules. Malcolm takes the couch apart with increasing contempt for whoever manufactured it. Cheap bolts, he mutters. You helped me buy it. I was younger and reckless. At the bottom of the stairs, Priya is standing beside the maintenance bay in a new Navy supervisor's jacket. The sleeves are too long. For a moment, all 4 of us occupy the same patch of concrete. Lena, she says. Priya. Grant is visible through the terminal glass. Priya folds her arms. You left a company tablet unsecured. I found it unsecured. You turned it over to the insurer. That seemed more secure. Her eyes flash. Do you know what he's doing to me? Yes. No, you don't. Every mistake is suddenly mine. Every delay. Every drawer that's short by $5. He gave me your job and removed every reason anyone could succeed at it. Then document that. Her face changes. It's a cruel thing to say to someone trapped inside the lesson you taught her. I'm sorry, I tell her. Grant steps out of the terminal. Everything all right? Priya looks straight at him. Lena's advising me on documentation. Malcolm makes a strangled sound behind the couch. Grant ignores it. Priya inside. She holds my gaze for another second, then leaves. Ruth and I take my boxes to a furnished room above a closed florist shop on Harbor Street. The carpet smells faintly of dust and roses. My kitchen has 1 burner and a sink too small for Malcolm's thermos. Ruth puts my harbor chart on the wall. You don't have to do that, I say. I'm aware. She smooths the lower corner with her palm. Grant says the photograph proves there was a disagreement, not that you were right. Grant would call a shipwreck an aggressive docking. He also says Owen's initial report confirms the captain independently judged it safe to proceed. Do you believe that? Ruth steps back from the chart. I believe Owen wants to keep his license and Grant wants to keep the company. That wasn't my question. No, she says. It was the question you wish mattered most. She leaves before I can ask which question matters to her. At Harborline, Tessa puts me in charge of coordinating a sonar run near the South Channel Cable Trench. The job requires tide tables, launch clearances, notices from harbor traffic, and a dredging schedule. Dawson's office revises almost hourly. I find the conflict in 11 minutes. You can't run line 6 at 10:30, I tell Cal, the geophysicist. It's on my plan. So is a dredge. Can we ask them to move? It weighs 900 tons. So that's a no? That's a very stable no. We shift his run by 40 minutes and save 4 hours of standby time. Tessa watches me revise the board. Still hate the pay? She asks. With depth. Good. I worried you were settling. My work gives me access to public harbor notices and the county's vessel procurement documents, the same ordinary information any operator uses to schedule commercial traffic. In the county's bid requirements, incident disclosures must include dispatch communications, captain's notes, maintenance status, and external harbor advisories. Grant's submission includes a 3-paragraph incident summary. The dispatch communication is described as unavailable due to personnel transition. Owen's notes are summarized but not attached. The harbor advisory is listed at 6:16 when outbound traffic formally closed. The 5:41 warning is absent. I send one email to Marisol Vega, the county procurement officer. I don't accuse Grant of lying. I identify the missing categories, cite the relevant bid section, and state that the dispatch records may exist in the insurer's custody. Her reply arrives the next morning. The county review is paused pending clarification. Grant finds Malcolm's washer pump before Malcolm delivers it. By afternoon, Malcolm is reassigned from maintenance planning to night fueling. Grant calls it temporary coverage. Malcolm calls it an excellent opportunity to become nocturnal at 58. We meet at the rope bell after his shift. The bartender sets down his coffee and my club soda without asking. He wants me to classify the propeller guard as routine harbor damage, Malcolm says. Was it? It was routine if you routinely strike objects at speed. Will you sign? I sign the inspection. Bent guard, transferred impact, port side vibration. He can call it a romantic misunderstanding if he likes. Owen enters while Malcolm is talking. He looks at Malcolm, then at me, and places a folded sheet of paper on the table. My initial report, he says. Grant added the paragraph about independent judgment. After you signed? The signature page was separate. Malcolm swears softly. Owen sits down. He submitted it to the county. If the contract fails, he says it'll be because my report raised concerns about command readiness. I unfold the paper. In Owen's cramped handwriting, beside 601, are 6 words. Dispatch says warning stale. GM release. I should have refused, he says. Yes, he flinches. I slide the paper back. And I should have asked whether you were being threatened before I decided cowardice explained everything. That's almost an apology. It's the Marine version. He gives me the original and keeps a copy. The insurer requests the certified harbor traffic log and archived radio index 2 days later. Grant's attorney produces a typed weather summary instead. Carla tells me she has asked again for the underlying entries. At the county's rescheduled clarification meeting, Grant will have to explain the photograph, Owen's note, the maintenance precautions, and why the formal closure is the only harbor event in his timeline. He still has one advantage. The warning itself exists only in my notebook and other people's memory. Then Carla walks into Harborline carrying a certified envelope from the harbor desk. She lays the traffic log beneath the chart room lamp and turns it toward me. The first relevant line reads, 054118, dense fog warning, inner harbor visibility, below safe transit range. Mercer dispatch acknowledged. Carla keeps one finger beside the line. There's more, she says. The archived radio index gives us 4 recordings. In the first, my voice acknowledges the warning. In the second, I place the North Star on hold and tell Owen the bow thruster will remain available. The third captures my transfer of operations to Grant at 5:52. The fourth begins with Owen asking, "Confirm dispatch release despite harbor fog warning." Grant answers, "Warning is stale. Conditions are improving. You are released at 6:03. His voice is calm and unmistakable. I listen twice. Carla closes her folder. The insurer will revise its findings. Will they conclude the impact was preventable? They'll conclude the departure materially increased the risk of it. That sounds more expensive. It usually is. She takes the certified log back and slides it into a clear sleeve. I feel an irrational urge to hold on to it. For weeks, I've carried the morning in my own handwriting while Grant called it memory, interpretation, hurt, panic. Now the harbor itself has written the time down. Tessa is waiting outside the chart room. Well, she asks, 5:41 and 18 seconds. She nods, then points toward the South Channel schedule on my desk. Good. Cal has tried to put the dredge and our sonar boat in the same place again. Maybe he's conducting an impact study. He says the software allowed it. The software doesn't drown. I move his survey window. My hands remain steady on the keyboard. The county clarification meeting is held in an annex that used to be a bank. The old vault door is still visible behind a wall of filing cabinets, and the conference table has one short leg propped up with a folded ferry brochure. Marisol Vega sits at the head with two members of the procurement team. Carla attends for the insurer. Ruth and Grant sit together on the opposite side, though there is a full chair's width between them. Grant brings an attorney named Peter Lyle, who looks tired before anyone speaks. I bring my shift notebook. Owen, Malcolm, and Priya wait along the wall. Marisol starts with the county bid, not the accident. Mercer Sound Ferries certified that its incident disclosure was complete, she says. We've since received additional records. Mr. Mercer, would you explain why the harbor warning at 5:41 was omitted? Grant folds his hands on the table. The 5:41 broadcast was advisory. The harbor remained open. The captain retained discretion to depart. That wasn't my question. I'm explaining the operational context. The context can follow the answer. Grant glances at Peter. Peter gives a small nod. The warning was omitted because our initial report focused on the mandatory closure at 6:16. Who made that decision? I approve the report. He does not say he wrote it. He does not blame a clerk. Grant has always known when a weak excuse costs more than it saves. Marisol places Priya's photograph in front of him. Is that your hand? Yes. Why were you crossing out the hold? Because I overruled it. At what time? Approximately 5:50. The photograph was uploaded at 5:50. Your watch appears to read 5:49. Grant looks at the image. I can tell he's seeing the watch clearly for the first time. Then 5:49. So 11 minutes before the harbor closed, but 8 minutes after the warning. Yes, your written submission says the dispatch hold occurred before any official harbor notice. Peter leans toward his microphone. The word official is being used in two different senses. Marisol turns to him. That's one of the reasons we asked for the raw records. Grant steps in before Peter can make the distinction worse. My description should have been more precise. I know what it costs him to say that. I also know he has selected the smallest available admission and intends to stop there. Marisol asked me to describe the hold. I keep it plain. Visibility marker gone. Warning received. Vessel held. Owen advised. Thruster kept online because fog increases low-speed maneuvering risk even at the dock. Were you afraid? She asks. Grant's eyes move to me. Yes, I say. Peter looks up. I was afraid of sending a loaded passenger ferry into a channel where commercial work was underway and visibility was below safe transit range. Fear was relevant information. It wasn't the only information. Did your prior medical leave affect your decision? It affected how carefully I checked myself. I confirmed the end light was obscured. I confirmed the harbor warning. I spoke with Captain Rusk. I retained maneuvering equipment. Then I made the hold. I opened my folder and removed 3 performance evaluations signed by Grant. Since my return to duty, Mr. Mercer promoted me twice. Last year, he rated my emergency judgment as exceptional. Marisol reads the top page. Grant's signature sits at the bottom in blue ink. Did you write this evaluation? She asks him. Yes. Did you have concerns about Ms. Mercer's fitness before she delayed this departure? Grant's thumb presses against the side of his index finger. It's a habit from family card games, his tell when he has a losing hand and is deciding whether to bluff. No. The word changes the room more than anything louder could have. Malcolm explains the thruster instruction and the damage inspection. He uses exact mechanical terms until Marisol asks whether keeping the thruster live helped. Owen used it to swing the bow away from the dredging barge, he says. Without it, the fender strike would have happened farther aft, closer to the passenger cabin. Grant looks down. Priya confirms the shift change photograph was routine. She also says Grant instructed staff not to discuss the incident and later made her acting supervisor. Was the promotion intended to influence your account? Marisol asks. Priya glances at Grant. He never said that. Did you experience it that way? I experienced it as being given Lena's job and warned I could lose it. Grant's chair creaks when he shifts. Owen goes last. He reads from his original scratch notes and describes Grant's threat to record him as unfit for the county schedule. He also takes responsibility for accepting the release. I was master of the vessel, he says. I could have held at the dock. I didn't. Peter asks whether Owen saw the 5:41 log before departure. No, so your decision wasn't based on that entry. My decision was based on Grant telling me the entry no longer mattered. The meeting lasts 2 hours. Grant speaks well. He explains the pressure on a small ferry operator, the difference between advisories and closures, and the captain's legal authority. He shows real numbers: debt from the engine refit, projected winter ridership, jobs tied to the county route. His argument would be persuasive if the timeline beside it did not show every place where he had altered the account to protect that argument. Marisol closes the bid folder. The county is suspending the award for 30 days. Mercer Sound ferries may submit a corrective operations plan, revised incident disclosure, and proof of independent safety oversight. We will also review whether the current management structure can administer the proposed service. Grant's face holds until we reach the hallway. Then he turns on me. You got what you wanted. Ruth is beside him, Peter a few steps away. People are moving around us carrying folders and paper cups. What do you think I wanted? I ask. You wanted the bid stopped. I wanted the 5:41 warning included. And now 12 people get to wonder if they'll have winter jobs. They were already wondering. You used them to pressure me. I was trying to keep the company alive. You were trying to keep your version alive. His voice drops. You could have corrected the record privately. I tried. You put a yellow flag on the lie and asked me to sign it. Ruth closes her eyes briefly. Grant looks at her. You brought her those papers. I know, she says. You told me she'd be practical. I mistook silence for practicality. The words strike him harder coming from her. He walks away. Peter follows, still carrying the thick binder Grant has forgotten to take. The insurer requires Mercer Sound Ferries to retrain its masters, revise dispatch authority, and submit monthly safety audits. The deductible on the accident claim rises. The injured passengers accept settlements after their medical costs, and missed work are documented. The North Star returns to limited service with a new propeller guard and a scar along the edge of her work deck. The county's 30 days begin draining money immediately. Grant reduces the schedule instead of laying people off. It is the right decision, competently made. He also restores Malcolm to daytime maintenance because the corrective plan needs his inspection records. Malcolm receives the news without gratitude. I was beginning to enjoy breakfast at 4 in the afternoon, he tells me. Priya remains acting supervisor, though Grant removes her authority to approve weather delays. He calls it temporary centralization. The insurer calls it evidence that the corrective plan is inadequate. Tessa offers me a permanent job. She places the offer letter beside a sonar chart and says, the pay has improved from insulting to mildly rude. I read it twice. You don't need a full-time launch coordinator. I need someone who tells expensive people no before they put expensive equipment underwater. The offer gives me a choice I didn't have when I packed the apartment. It also means Ruth can't bring me home by appealing to fear. She comes to Harbor Line 3 days before the county deadline. The red coat is gone. She wears the navy cardigan with the mismatched repair at the cuffs. I need to ask you something unpleasant, she says. Tessa keeps a list. You can add it. Come back. I set down the tide ruler in my hand. Under Grant? No. Beside Grant? If he accepts it. And if he doesn't? Then he can take his spreadsheets somewhere farther from the water. Ruth puts a draft corrective plan on my desk. It creates a director of marine safety and dispatch with authority independent of scheduling and finance. Weather holds cannot be reversed by one person. Captains can refuse releases without employment penalties. Safety records go to the insurer and the family's management committee. The job described is mine, but I could fill it without becoming the only person who knows how it works. That matters. What happens to Grant? I ask. He keeps finance and schedule planning. He loses operational command for at least 18 months. Any return requires outside review. He'll hate it. He hates losing at gin rummy. This is larger. I read the plan again. My personnel record gets corrected. Termination rescinded, back pay through the date Harbor Line hired me, moving costs, and a written acknowledgement that the hold was justified. Ruth nods. Priya becomes deputy with Weather Authority. She needs more training. I'll train her. Malcolm? Restored planning hours and the second maintenance hire he requested. That costs money. So does hitting marine equipment. Ruth writes it down. Owen retrains before returning as master. His report includes his mistake and Grant's instruction. Yes. I don't move back into the apartment. That surprises her. It's empty. It belongs to the company. I need a front door that doesn't come with my job. Ruth rests the pen on the plan. And Grant? She asks. What about him? What do you need from him? I think of the terminal, his hand over mine, the slash through yellow letters. I think of him bringing groceries when I couldn't leave the apartment and sitting in his truck so I wouldn't have to thank him. I need him to follow the terms, I say. I've spent enough time needing him to understand. Grant makes us negotiate every line. He argues that independent dispatch will slow decisions. I show him a dual release procedure that takes under 30 seconds. He rejects the phrase wrongful termination, so we settle on termination without adequate factual basis and contrary to safe operating judgment. And he tries to make Priya's appointment provisional. Priya tells him she will return to ticketing rather than accept a title designed to vanish. The last dispute is his access to the radio. Finance needs real-time operational awareness, he says across the empty terminal office. Then you can listen to the ceiling speaker. You're enjoying this. A little. For the first time since the accident, he almost smiles. Then his face settles. I believed the warning would lift, he says. It isn't an apology. Why? The fog was thinning on Harbor Street. The county representative was already asking about our on-time report. I thought if we took another delay, they'd see us as unreliable. So you decided I was the unreliable thing. I decided you were wrong. And after the fender, I decided we couldn't survive your being right. There it is. Small, ugly, human. You fired me before the fender. I know. He looks through the terminal glass at slip 3. I heard the warning, he says. I know. Grant signs the corrective plan. The county does not hand us the full contract. It approves a limited winter route, subject to 6 months of audits, then opens the remaining service for review. We cut 2 evening sailings and lose some commuters to the larger operator. The company survives smaller than Grant intended and safer than he allowed. He moves his office to a rented room above an accounting firm 3 blocks from the harbor. Ruth visits him on Tuesdays. I see him at management meetings where he is useful, restrained, and occasionally furious. Our family dinners become less frequent and more honest. Owen completes retraining. Priya earns her captain endorsement and becomes my deputy. Malcolm gets his second mechanic, though he claims the man organizes sockets like a person raised by wolves. The first heavy fog of the next season arrives before dawn. I enter the terminal with coffee in one hand and my shift notebook in the other. The ceiling speaker carries the harbor desk's warning at 5:38. Priya repeats it back. Owen confirms from the North Star that the end light is gone. Beside the departure board, a yellow grease pencil hangs from its clip. Ruth found it in Grant's old desk when she cleared the drawers. The bite mark near the tip is his. I write, "Hold, fog," across the morning departure. Priya photographs the board. Owen reports his lines secure. Malcolm leaves the bow thruster live. Below my words, I add the harbor timestamp and draw one clean line beneath it. Outside, the fog closes around the North Star, and she remains exactly where I put her.